This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. And welcome everybody to this episode of Coming Home with John Allen. I am so happy to be here with my guest today, Jonathan Hall. Before we talk with Jonathan, I want to make sure I remind everybody that you can go to my website, johnallenpod.com, JOHNALANPOD.com. That's where you'll find all of the work that I do, including my audiobook. There's been a longer pause from me on the writing process, but I'm back at it, so there are more chapters for you. Subscribe there. It's $5 a month. You start at chapter 1, and you get a new chapter every week. So, Jonathan Hall, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
It's been a while.
It's nice to be here.
It's good to have you. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole different world, isn't it?
You know, it sure is. And everybody knows what that means. Everybody knows what that means. Love her or hate her, Kamala Harris has ushered in a new era. Love him or hate him, Donald Trump. Well, we're going to talk about that. I don't think Trump is doing anything new. I think he's his same old, did I say old? That's not nice. He's his same bombastic self with very little foundation in fact. But we'll talk about that.
Well, that's that's sort of first up on my list, since everything has changed in the last 3 weeks. So it's just amazing. It's wonderful to see it. The enthusiasm. It gives hope. Not only to me, but just to so many millions of people, millions of Americans, many millions of people across the world, to see this enthusiasm and to feel it and to just enjoy it and living with this, living with this joyous kind of thing. It's good to be excited about a race again.
Well, it's quite refreshing. It's quite refreshing, isn't it? And God bless Joe Biden, but there was not a lot of enthusiasm around him or in his campaign. There was at times more worry than enthusiasm. So here comes Kamala Harris with exactly that, enthusiasm, and it really is. It's a new political era, at least for the Democratic Party.
Where I placed myself on that scale of whether Joe Biden should go off, should pull out of the race, I felt like he could be a good president, or he could be a good campaigner. But he couldn't do both. I just didn't think he was in shape for it. Because presidential campaign, what those people go through, I can only imagine. It's just...
Yeah. I'm fairly healthy myself, and I don't know...
Right thing to do, and...
I'm fairly healthy myself, and I don't think I could do it. I mean, it appears to be so demanding. And again, God bless him, but you had to wonder. People did wonder if Joe Biden was up to it. So I think he did the honorable thing by stepping aside. But there's another side to that, at least a side that MAGA tries to put a voice on, and that is that Joe Biden didn't step aside. He was shoved aside. What do you think about that? Do you have any commentary along those lines?
Was he pushed out? No. I mean, he could see it as well as anybody else. Yeah. Obviously, it's a huge decision and something we can never properly empathize with. Being in that situation is just so far removed from our everyday lives. But he, I mean, as I said, and I think that has a lot to do with it. He could either be president for 6 months, or he could try to run a campaign, which he might very well lose and look like he was going to lose. But he couldn't do both.
Yeah. But what about the
So
narrative?
I'm glad we've got him.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say, what about there's a little
Yeah,
bit of a delay here.
that he's
So
being pushed out.
yeah, that he's being pushed out. I don't go for that. I believe that Joe Biden, I've always considered him an honorable man. And I believe that what he did was put a lot of thought into this. I believe that he is a patriot. So it's not like he's like, okay, screw it, I'm gone. No, he put a lot of thought into this because he's a patriot. He wants to contribute. He wants to do for America. But I do believe that the honorable aspect of his persona led him to a decision to where he decided the best thing for America was for him to step aside. Does that jive with what you think about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, he's not a dumb man. I think it was pretty strategic. The time that he chose after the RNC.
Yeah.
And, I think I'm sure that was planned right down to the hour and minute.
I believe that as well. I believe he came to a decision long before he announced it, and he timed it to have the strongest effect in favor of Kamala Harris and to the detriment of MAGA.
Right. It hit the news cycle perfectly. It was, what was it, a Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. It was Sunday night here. Yeah. And just amazing. So that it just, it filled the airways from Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
With no let up.
Yeah.
And by Friday, Kamala was the presumptive.
Yeah. They put that.
And I should.
No, go ahead.
I should mention that I have, if I can remember to do it, I have decided to call her Harris. Who else do we call? Who else do we call by their first names?
Right.
Except the ladies in the game.
Right.
So if I can remember it, and I will try to call her Harris or Vice President Harris or whatever, depending on the formality of the situation. But it's the Harris campaign. It's not the Kamala campaign.
Yeah. No, when I find that when I refer to her, I use her whole name. I say Kamala Harris. For the most part. Or I will deliberately say just Kamala, kind of as my individual effort to combat this, what I think is strange, or if I can use the word weird. I think it's a weird MAGA obsession with the mispronunciation of her first name. I don't understand it. I think it's laughable. So I make a point. Yeah, so I make a point of Kamala. Her name is Kamala. It's not Kamala. It's not Kamala. Yeah. It's not Kamala. It's Kamala.
Yeah.
So I make a point of saying it as often as I can.
But the next administration, happily, is going to be called Kamala. I love it.
Well,
Kamala.
I like the way the Democratic Party as a whole has turned away from either being silent about Trump and MAGA's hatefulness, harshness, or if they address it, they address it so weakly. I like that they've turned away from that and they're just calling it. I mean, it's a lot of things, but they are calling it one thing, which is weird. I think that is brilliant. That is a brilliant label to put on what Trump and MAGA are doing or trying to do. I think it's brilliant.
It's brilliant, and it's good to see the Democrats doing something right.
Yeah.
For once.
Let us admit it. Let us admit this.
They have been. Yeah. They have been losing elections very. I don't know, consistently.
Why do you think that is? What has been wrong? What has been wrong with the Democrats?
They've been afraid to stand for their positions. they've been afraid to go out onto that limb on the left side of the tree and say that this is what we stand for. We stand for working people, and we stand for the right to choose. We stand for education, and they've been afraid of that ever since the party was taken over by the neocons under Clinton. Um, they've just moved completely away from that social political policy movement and have positioned themselves simply as the only alternative to uh, radical right Republicans. And whether that was right or not, I mean, it got Obama elected in 2008. That's good. There was an amazing amount of enthusiasm, but the policies didn't really come to the front in the same way that they have done this time.
Yeah.
This time, the policies are front and center. Every time there is a speech or a rally, it's policy, policy, policy. Here's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Give us a mandate to do it. Give us the election. Give us the House and the Senate. So
the Democratic Party has gotten bold again. You touched on that. You said you were saying before, and this is very true. It's almost as if the Democratic Party was afraid of their own policies, and when they got challenged on things,
right.
it would be this effort to explain it that was not coming from a position of conviction and strength. It was always extremely defensive, and it came off as weak. And
defense,
yeah, and the Democratic Party is not coming off as weak anymore. I love how
this time.
Well, I love how, they're talking about the governor of Minnesota, who is now Vice President Kamala Harris's pick to be the upcoming vice president. MAGA and Trump are trying to attack his record as the governor of Minnesota. And you look at things like he has gotten not just free lunch for students, he's gotten free breakfast and lunch. For students, he's doing that from a position. He's doing that from a position of having a budget. I believe it was $11 billion surplus, and Minnesota Republican says, "Well, we want that surplus, that $11 billion in surplus, to go towards a tax cut for the wealthy." Now, to have the guts, to have the balls, to suggest something like that fascinates me, but that's what they suggested. And he said, no, this is the people's money. We're going to give it back to the people. And in this case, the people was or is children, students in schools, free breakfast, free lunch. And he's standing firm on that. They're saying, well, that's some kind of MAGA is saying that's some kind of crazy socialist communist policy that you've implemented. And his answer is, well, you're weird. This is something that is good for our children, my children, your children, children of Democrats, children of Republicans. You're weird. It's weird to be against that. What is the problem with that? It's not taking any money out of anyone's pocket in that it was part of a $11 billion surplus. It's actually putting food and comfort and a greater ability to learn into the lives of these children. This is nothing that's being taken away from anyone else. And I like that.
It's not being taken away.
No, and I like.
It's great.
I love his approach. I love his response to that. No, what are you, crazy? This is good. This is good, and here's why it's good. It's not just good for Democrats. It's good for everyone in the state of Minnesota.
It's just amazing that he got it through, and he has just enormous positive approval ratings in the state.
Yeah,
and this is not buying votes.
No,
this is just using the taxpayers' money that is theirs to do good things for the people. But there is a huge body of the American constituency that still thinks that if you give poor people anything,
Yeah.
that you're buying votes,
Yeah.
and that the wrong kind of people will be making decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all know where that comes from, and what it leads to
Yeah.
eventually. It's just amazing that that they're stuck in that mind frame, which goes all the way back to Reconstruction, and it goes back to the darkest episodes in American history. But
Well, to me, the
we've got reason
strange.
to be hopeful now.
Well-
Now we're doing great.
Well, to me, the strange part of that is that it's not so much that MAGA Republicans have kind of latched onto that way of thinking, that way of doing politics, if you will. What's more strange to me is that their constituents, their MAGA followers, actually go for that. Is it willful ignorance?
Well,
Are they? To me, yeah.
Yeah. I heard it. I heard it described. There was a guy. He was talking from Missouri, and he said that he was traveling in some rural counties out there, and he didn't see any more MAGA
Yeah.
signs and flags flying everywhere.
Yeah.
He said that was gone. But when he got to the rich resort suburbs, they're like rural suburbs
Yeah.
around Lake of the Ozarks and stuff. People who had done well, you found the Trump flags.
Yeah.
But the rural poor people who were having a tough time of it seemed to have given up on it, and that was nice to hear.
That's very nice to hear.
I've got family who are in that who were in that cult, and I love them. I love my redneck cousins. I think that they're fun.
Uh-huh.
They're amazing people to be around, and I would love. I wish I had some of that swagger, some of that, some of that style. I don't. I can't pull it off. But I think that they're. I think that people are coming around.
Do you think so? I do as well.
So
I think that Vice President Harris is doing something, and President Biden did this as well. The fact that they're so vocal about their support of the common people, the working class, and to see both President Biden and now most recently Vice President Harris be so fully and publicly and undoubtedly embraced by the United Auto Workers Union. I don't know if you saw that, but there was,
Right.
to me, that says a lot. You can't get more. I mean, you can, but it's a very, it creates a picture when you talk about unions. It creates a picture of the common person, middle class, maybe even lower class, struggling, hardworking, if not struggling, but often struggling American. And the United Auto Workers Union
Right.
has fully endorsed and embraced the campaign of Vice President Kamala Harris. I think that says a lot. I think that when things like that happen,
It says an amazing amount.
yeah, and when things like that happen,
Yeah.
if you're
And
on the MAGA
big
side, how do you?
unions.
Well, yeah, and if you're on the MAGA side, how do you ignore that? How do you explain that away? How can you then in the next sentence say that you, as a MAGA cohort, are for the common American, the working person in America? It doesn't work.
It gets very difficult. There's a lot of contradictions there, and even the UAW is not a progressive liberal organization. It
Not
is
at
a
all.
union, but its politics have always been at least centrist,
Yes.
if not in many cases
Yeah.
very conservative.
Yeah.
So even though their mission ostensibly is to fight for their
Yeah.
workers.
Yeah.
And they do a good job of that, but politically they're not a progressive radical
No, not at all.
organization
Not at all.
in any way.
Not at all. So that's a big win for the Harris campaign, which is
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely. They're doing everything right, and that's just one of those things that you got to watch out for in politics and business and in your personal life. If you just it's not always easy and it doesn't always work,
No.
but if you just find out what is the right thing to do and do it and get it over with.
Yeah. Well, I think that
make a decision.
Yeah,
Stick with it.
Well, I think that you said the Democrats are doing everything right. This campaign, this team of Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz is hard to beat. I think that MAGA knows. I think MAGA knows that it's hard to beat. I think Trump knows that it's hard to beat. I think Trump is scared. What do you think he's going to do? Is he gonna last? Or is there a chance that he could drop out?
I've heard.
I love some of the pundits on the left are kind of teasing him about being too old and decrepit, and maybe you should just back out. Follow Joe Biden, and you guys go argue at a cafe somewhere and let somebody else take over. What do you think Trump's going to do?
Right. I've seen this that he might drop out, and there's a certain legitimacy to it that he's got a lot of problems. He has several alternatives. If he wanted to drop out, he could cut a deal. He could get immunity or a plea deal in exchange for dropping out. I'm sure somebody would be willing to fix that for him. Or he could feign some sort of illness and just say he can't do it anymore. But what he's not going to do, he's not going to admit that he's lost.
No, as we see.
That's just not going to happen.
He said just yesterday evening that he's actually rising in the polls. That's just so far from the truth. It's ridiculous.
Well, we've all learned not to take anything he says seriously, and how people can still do that is difficult for me to fathom.
Yeah.
All right. He's still got 47, 48, 46, 47, 48, 49% in a bunch of different polls.
Yeah.
But the trend is not going his way.
No.
It continues to go down for him.
Now, you said I think this is interesting. Let's talk about this a little bit. You said that he could offer up some kind of deal that he'll pull out if he can get some sort of legal immunity for some of these cases that he's facing. I don't think that will happen, and I'll tell you why. Because it smells of judicial corruption. Now, let me explain that. If Donald Trump or if anyone has done something wrong and they've been indicted and there's an upcoming trial or at least an investigation, I would think that if they went into some kind of deal, it would be a deal within legal or within the legal jurisdiction, and his campaign is outside of that. So I don't think he would do any kind of deal that had anything to do with his campaign. What do you think about that?
That is an idea that has been floated by pundits, by people on the wide internet.
Yeah.
And how serious it is. It's just an interesting thought that there could be an option there could be some loophole that he could get through, and we know how good his lawyers are. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
they can fix it.
No, I just don't think. I just don't think.
Rudy Giuliani Giuliani could go in and fix that in a minute. So did you see him fall down at the fucking
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if that is not an image
awful.
of his, that's just an image of his life. He is falling down. He's just, oh my gosh. America's mayor. No, but I don't think I don't think that there'll be any kind of a deal like that, because it to me that kind of blends two different worlds, the political world with the legal world. I don't think any prosecutors would go for any kind of a deal like that. But that he could back out.
That's the least. That's the least likely. But I don't think he's going to back out without a backup. He's going to need some kind of assurance that he's not going to jail. So
that's going to be hard to get that insurance.
Yeah. Otherwise, he's going to go. Yeah. So, and as far as his lawyers and their strategy, I mean, I can't see this campaign going anywhere but just an implosion of epic dimensions.
Yeah.
Last night, he held a rally in Montana. He held a rally in Bozeman, Montana. He couldn't land at Bozeman. The news reports came out. There was he had technical difficulties with the plane. The plane had to land in Billings, Montana.
Okay.
Well, it turns out that he owes the airport in Bozeman, Montana, $50,000 from his last campaign when they stopped and they didn't pay their bill. And it was just very close to not being able to land in Billings, Montana, because he owes their police department $12,000.
I did not hear this. Now I knew that his campaign
fantastic.
I knew that his campaign owed different cities, municipalities, police departments, that he owed a lot of money. He wasn't paying his bills. But that it would actually get to the point where he would be refused to
let him land.
I love it. I love it. This is going to be a Instagram reel. This little bit right here. This is the man that MAGA supports. This is the man that 40% of Americans want to be the president of the United States. Really, is this the guy? Disgusting. Absolutely. Well, we have to laugh
amazing.
too. Yeah, but
it gets better.
Oh gosh,
it gets better. Gets better. Did you see the rally?
I saw a couple of clips this morning after breakfast. I did see a couple of clips. The typical stuff about him.
Did you hear the song?
No.
Did you? Oh, the musical intro to his entrance was a song. It's sung by Celine Dion.
Yeah.
And it was it's called "My Heart Will Go On."
Yeah. Isn't that the song from the Titanic? Yeah, yeah.
It's in the Titanic, the ship that sank. That was their theme song for the evening. It only took Sony Canada or Capital Canada 5 minutes to write that they are getting their lawyers on the case immediately.
Well, let me tell you something.
Music.
I never call people stupid. I think that's mean. But I'll say this about Donald Trump: he certainly is not very smart.
Okay.
He certainly is not very smart. Where's the planning? Where is the supportive staff that would pick up on something like that and say, maybe we shouldn't use this song as intro music for this. Unbelievable.
It's Unbelievable. Amazing. It's just amazing.
Unbelievable.
What was it that Vance had a rally last week, and the stage was set up so that, okay, I don't remember how the sign was supposed to say, but up behind Vance, when the people stood up in the audience behind him, all you could see on the sign was Harris. That was it.
now the Harris campaign needs to pick that up and use that as an ad.
It was amazing. So not only is he is Donald Trump a dangerous, strange, weird person, but he surrounds himself with idiots.
Yeah.
And maybe they're the only ones who will play his game. They're, they are not clever.
No, you see, there's a certain type of person when you look at his inner circle, if he even has one. If you look at the people at the top of MAGA, working with and for Donald Trump, they carry a little bit of baggage. Let me ask you this, okay? It looks like the way I look at it, I don't see how Donald Trump can gain more support. At the very best, he'll keep the support he has. However, I do see that Vice President Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, I do see where there's plenty of room for them to enlarge in there, to gain more followers, to gain more momentum. How likely do you think it is? How likely do you think it is that there will be a President Kamala Harris?
I just heard a beautiful example of how things can go.
Yeah.
In 1968, Lyndon Johnson was on his way to Hawaii to negotiate a peace settlement with North Vietnam. They turned the plane around because Martin Luther King had been shot.
Yeah.
And there were riots in the street. Later on that month, he announced that he was dropping out, that he would not seek re-election. Robert Kennedy was going to be the nominee. There was no doubt about it. It was in the bag. And then he died in June or July. So we got Nixon. Putting a number on that, saying that she's got a 50% chance of winning or she's got a 99% chance of winning. It's an eternity, these 90 days that we've got left.
That is true, yeah.
It's just an eternity. So it's a fool's game to start making predictions. I think the chances are good if it continues the way it is, barring an intervention of fate. And we've seen too much of it. There's just been too many tragedies up through our history.
Yeah.
So let's not wish for disaster. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But there's a lot of things that can happen in 90 days, both political, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, let's keep our hopes up. But let me ask you this. If there is a situation that leads to Kamala Harris becoming president, what happens to Donald Trump and MAGA? What do you think? He's lost. Let me add something to this. I think, and I might be foolish for making such a prediction, but I think the Harris Walz ticket is going to win so decisively. I think they're going to pound Donald Trump's dick in the dirt. And I think it's going to be such a clear win that they're not even going to dare to do all of this, these ridiculous lawsuits and tricks that they're going to try and do, that they tried to do the last election with votes and accusations of illegitimacy and whatnot. I don't think that's going to happen. I think she's going to really give him a beating, and it's going to be very clear. So with that in mind, if it happens that way, what do you think happens to Donald Trump and MAGA?
I hope that they just fade into the background as they, as they should. There's not going to be a civil war.
No.
That's something that I've heard also around. People are worried that it's going to get violent.
No.
That there's going to be this thing. I think that if that map is blue on November, whatever, then there's nothing they can do about it. They know there's nothing they can do about it, and they will stand down. If there is, so the MAGAs will have to, take their hats in their hands and walk away and concede, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah,
that's the political system. That's democracy.
Yeah.
If it's close, then there's something else going on. And you ask what happens to Trump? Fuck him.
I love it. Excellent political assessment.
I don't care.
No, I think that what happens to Trump if he loses, especially if he loses big, I do believe that. I almost said that the Republicans would come to their senses. I don't think they'll do that. I do believe that they will continue with their version of a Trumpless MAGA movement. But I believe that Trump will be forever out of politics, and he's going to have his hands full for the rest of his life with a lot of legal issues. That's what I think happens to Trump.
Absolutely.
But I do believe that MAGA in some form or another will continue. There are too many Republicans. Of course, there are Republicans who don't want anything to do with MAGA as it is now. But I do believe that there are too many Republicans who see benefit in continuing that type of political philosophy. I do believe MAGA in some form or another with a new leader will continue.
Absolutely. There are people like Mike Johnson and Jim Jordan, and these crazy young ladies on that side of the aisle, who I don't even care to mention, and none of them are respectable politicians. They're shit stirrers. They're there to disrupt and to rule by disruption. So I hope that the Republican Party comes to its senses, and it's quite possible that with a minority in the House, then they can get something done. Because them having a slim majority in the House has been the worst thing that could have happened to their party. They so that these insane right-wing crazies have full control over the goings on the floor of the House. In the minority, they have another option, which is that the majority of Republicans in the House are not beholden to these radical right Trumpers. So they can work together. They can work across the aisle. But right now they can't do that.
No.
So this presidential race is important. It's amazing and it's hopeful and stuff. But without the House and the Senate, there's nothing we can do.
There's another narrative about Vice President Harris that says that she is not fit to be president because, and to me this is ridiculous, but they say this, she's not fit to be president because she has no experience. don't understand this. She has been quite the ambassador in some situations as the vice president, with other nations abroad in certain situations. She is, contrary to MAGA propaganda, she is not the so-called border czar. There's no such position for that, so let's forget about that. But as far as international politics experience, how can you be vice president and not gain some knowledge of that political realm? So I don't understand this thing. I don't think there is anything to understand to that when it comes to that narrative that she is not fit to be president because she lacks experience. What are your thoughts on that?
That's just amazing. You can't go into this. So well, I can't go into fact checking and rebutting.
No.
All of the crazy wrong things that MAGA says about everybody, about issues and about people.
Yeah.
This amazing person has grown up in a household with her father is an academic.
Yeah.
And mother was also a professional of some kind.
Yeah.
Very successful people.
Yeah.
She has done. She has learned that lesson. Do everything. Just do everything right.
Yeah.
Just don't fuck around.
Yes.
As a lawyer, as a prosecutor, as a politician, she has done amazing accomplishments, and there's no reason to rebut them. The record speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Also, is she fit? Is she fit to be president? They say that she's going to be bullied. I heard that terrible man say that she was just going to be president to deal with foreign leaders. They would never take her seriously. Give me a break.
Yeah. Well,
have you ever had an argument with a woman?
Every day. Every day.
You ever had an argument with a smart woman?
Every day. Yet again.
It's just. No.
Yeah, that's misogyny. That right there is MAGA misogyny, plain and simple. It's not based in fact. If I had that kind of a show with that kind of guest in front of me, it would take 2 seconds to debunk those kind of statements. Like you said, we're not going to waste our time going, piece by piece to pick apart these crazy MAGA accusations, and it's so far from being based in fact. I do believe, like I said earlier, I can't see Trump gaining more supporters because I believe little by little people are becoming aware of the craziness of Donald Trump and MAGA. And you have some people, I know some of them, who are saying they will vote for Donald Trump because of his because of the benefit to the nation's economy a Trump presidency will bring. Well, and again, I'm not going to waste a lot of time debunking that or contradicting that thought. All you have to do is look at Trump's presidency. There were no economic gains to be spoken of during his presidency. As a black man, I used to get insulted by this when people would say that Trump did so much for Black America. It's just, now I just laugh at it. You know what Trump did? You know what Trump did for me?
He wouldn't have rented you an apartment.
Well, I'll tell you this. Here's what Trump did for me.
I know what he would not do. He would not have rented you an apartment.
Trump made it possible, or made it necessary for me to come up with more resolve to be as anti-racist as possible, because Trump made it cool for people to be more openly racist against me. So thank you for that, Donald Trump. I have become a stronger debater. I've become a better man with more resolve because of you. So yeah, Donald Trump did that for this black man. But it's
Yeah.
it's laughable when people try to make these statements as if they're fact when the facts are in fact right in front of us. Um,
It's frustrating.
it is. I mean, I say it's
It,
laughable,
it is
but it is
absolutely.
frustrating.
It's sometimes disheartening, but it's frustrating to have to deal with that, and that is what Vice President Harris has done so beautifully. She has not wasted a single breath on rebutting the misinformation and disinformation that's coming out of the Trump camp. She is talking about what she wants to do
Yes. Yeah.
and what she has planned. And there's nothing objectionable in it. She's not a
No.
communist.
No.
God.
Well, her campaign is about hope and love, and the other campaign is about despair and hatred. He all I hear from him is about how he is the most unpatriotic person I've ever seen run for president. All he does is talk about how horrible America is.
Right.
That's all he does. That is not
Right.
somebody who should be sitting in
And
the White House. Whoever's in the White House needs to have hope for America. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So yeah, are they going to? So I got a couple of things more I'd like to get to. I see
Sure.
the clock is running here.
Wow, we've been going 47
but,
minutes, man.
are the there are a lot of MAGA people who say that they're going to leave the country after if Trump is not reelected or elected or whatever.
Yeah.
We've never had this situation before. Do you think they're going to be welcome in Europe?
I don't see anywhere where they would be welcome,
Where are they
except
gonna go?
possibly.
They're going to go to a white country,
Well,
right?
well, they would possibly be welcome under the wing of Viktor Orban. Possibly under the wing and under the hospitality of Vladimir
Hungary.
Putin. Vladimir Putin and Viktor Orban. I don't know anywhere else where they would be welcome. Maybe Hoksund here in Norway, but other than
Hungary.
that, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got to get in my Hoksund jab.
So yeah, that's going to be a problem for them. I don't think it's not like it was 40 years ago. I walked onto this continent and everybody just said, "Hey, cool,
Yeah.
an American.
Yeah.
This is fun, interesting. Why are you here? Oh, well, I'm a refugee." and they were like, "Wow, that's amazing." So that's good. That's good, but it's not like that anymore.
No,
There's
no.
not that kind of tolerance. So there's that. One thing we forget: there's a third candidate.
That's right, Mr.
There's
Kennedy.
There's an alternative, but to both of these people.
I don't see him as
There
a viable
Is
candidate. But who do you
real,
think? Who do you?
honest to God,
Well, who do you think he's going to pull the most votes away
could he
from?
be a spoiler?
Well, who do you think he's going to pull the most votes away from?
How is he a spoiler?
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah.
Which is fine. He was polling beautifully. A few months ago, 10%, like 8 and 10%. It was amazing. But then everybody realized how crazy he was.
Yeah.
And he went down to like 2 and 3%. Over the summer, like after the RNC, he was almost disappeared from the polls.
Yeah.
You've heard about the bear, right?
Yeah.
You've heard
Yeah.
about the bear.
Yeah.
There are more stories. There are so many more stories like that.
Tell us about the
You'll
bear.
have to listen to
For
a
those
Behind the Bastards.
well for those who don't know, tell the story about the bear, because this was just one of the most wacky things I could have ever imagined to happen. Tell the viewers and listeners about it.
In 2014, there was a bear cub discovered in Central Park in New York City, the Central Park. And it was found beside a wrecked bicycle. The bear was grievously traumatized. It had obviously not been hit by a bicycle. It was a mystery. It was a mystery for 10 years. And the other night, it was just a few nights ago, maybe a week, as much as a week.
About a week.
When Robert Kennedy came on and explained the whole thing to a comedian named Roseanne Barr. So we were up falconing in the Hudson Valley, as you do, me and some friends. And we were driving behind a van, and the van hit a bear cub. So we got out, got the bear cub off the side of the road, and I was going to skin it and eat it, which is legal in New York. I know that because I'm crazy. And he had the bear cub in the back of the car. He went to a restaurant in Manhattan with some friends, and the dinner went late, so he didn't have time to go back to his house and put the bear in the freezer or whatever you do.
Yeah.
So instead of that, he took a wrecked bicycle and he put that and the bear cub out in Central Park. It looked like it was West Side somewhere. I don't remember now. Anyway, so he was saying that there were people getting killed by bicycles in Central Park all the time. So I figured I would put this bear out there, and they would think that somebody had hit it with a bicycle. So he has admitted that now, but there are so many more stories. Let me tell you, there is a podcast called Behind the Bastards.
Behind the Bastards.
Hosted by a journalist named Robert Everson. Behind the Bastards. And they have just finished up a couple of weeks ago, a 4-part series on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which is mind-blowing listening.
Okay.
This story about the bear is not a surprise.
I need to look into that because I've always looked at him as Kennedy as a little kooky, more than a little kooky. And then this thing with the bear came up. I'm like, wow, this dude is really out there. So if there's more, if there's worse than that,
there's worse stories.
You got me curious now. I'm going to check that.
The great story, and you'll hear it on the podcast. But the fantastic story is when he was a teenager. He and his gang played a prank, loved to play pranks. And there were some of them that were really ugly. I can't describe, but this one was actually healthy and funny. One of the kids, young teenagers, I think, one of them slapped the trunk of a moving car, and another one fell down in the roadway and pretended to be, hit by this car. The driver of the car gets out and is shocked. And what do they say? You've killed another Kennedy.
Oh my goodness. Could a Kennedy be that tasteless about that issue? Wow. Oh my gosh.
This isn't like a couple of years after Robert Kennedy was shot. This is like,
wow.
So they're amazing. Listen to that podcast. Fantastic stories.
I'm going to check that out.
Behind the Bastards is a wonderful podcast. Robert Evans, the journalist, very entertaining and very funny. They cover the worst people in all of history. They've got like a 4-part or 6-part series on Henry Kissinger. They've just amazing,
interesting,
obscure figures from the past that have done horrible things. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got his own 4-part series on that just a couple of weeks ago. I
just wrote that podcast down.
Now, after the bear story's right,
No, I was saying I just wrote down the name of that podcast. I want to make sure. I want to make sure I check that out. That is that's interesting that there's even worse stories about RFK Jr. Worse stories than the bear and this tasteless thing about killing another Kennedy. Yeah. Let this guy stay in the race. Let him keep pulling votes.
Killed another Kennedy.
Let him keep pulling votes away from Trump. I like it.
Right. When he got up and walked away, they said, "Oh, it's a Kennedy miracle."
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Listen.
It's great.
Listen, Jonathan. This is the first time you and I have had an extended conversation on my show. You've been on a handful of times for some little segments called Coming Home Commentary on different topics.
Right.
I hope I can get you back here again soon because, this election is going to be, I hope the Democratic Party doesn't get arrogant, kind of like they did when Hillary Clinton was running. I believe there was a little bit of complacency and arrogance. They just thought, this is going to go so fine, we're going to be fine. I hope that doesn't happen this time. I don't want a bunch of drama, but I don't want complacency either. So let's keep the conversation going. I want to have you back again for a longer segment, and I'm bringing back
do that.
Yeah, and I'm bringing back the short commentary sections. The Coming Home Commentary is coming back as well. So I will be inviting you to get on the stump and have a few things to say coming up in the future. Before we sign off here, is there anything going on? Anything going on in your life? Anything else you wanted to bring up?
There's some really interesting stuff going on. I have some work with new mental health treatments that are just amazing. They are treating depression with ketamine.
Yes.
And saving lives.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's good. I'm very heavily involved in that. And I'm working on that. I'm working on a series of scripts, which I will probably put on TikTok, called "The Brain Has a Mind of Its Own."
So interesting. Now, I'm not on TikTok, but do you have an Instagram page? Will your TikTok will you also plug it in on Instagram?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
This is a thing that an assistant will figure that out, right? Hire an assistant.
Yeah, I'll let my PA work on that.
There you go. Because we all have a PA, right? We all have an assistant.
Right.
I wish we had more time, but this has been a good hour. I want to say right now, I want to do a little foreshadowing. I want to get people excited about the mental health treatment that you spoke about with ketamine. I have also been following a little bit of information about that. I would love to have you back on very soon for another hour segment to talk about just that. Does that sound good to you?
I would be glad to do that.
Beautiful.
I have a burning interest in this subject and in radically changing the way the healthcare system works on depression, especially mental health in general. But that's one place where we can make a huge difference, and it's the one place where so many people's lives are getting, it's detrimental to so many people's lives and well-being.
Yeah.
And there's a certain amount of this isn't necessary anymore. We can fix this.
Well,
with certain caveats, we can fix a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But there needs to be more acceptance for it. So sure, we'll talk about that, man.
Yeah. Mental health.
I'll bore you for a solid hour on that one.
Mental health is a subject that I hold near and dear to my heart. I consider myself a mental health advocate. I'm going to enjoy talking with you about that. Stick around, Jonathan, after I sign off here, and let's get that scheduled right away. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank all of you out there. Thank all of you out there for watching and for listening. This is Coming Home with John Allen. This is where we talk about things that are near and dear to our hearts. And every once in a while, that subject is politics. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. Thank you again, Jonathan Hall, for being here. Everybody, remember my website.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I just got to be quick and sign off here. Everyone, go to my website, johnallenpod.com, JOHNALANPOD.com. That's where you'll find all the work that I do, including my audio book. It is on a subscription basis where you get to hear me tell my story. Okay? Remember, everybody, there's a lot of beauty out there in the world. Go out into that world and love and be loved and enjoy the process. Thank you now. Bye.